guys, welcome to Overcrest. I'm Kris.
And I'm Jeff.
Jeff, man, it's really good to have you here.
Yeah, glad to be here. This is unfamiliar territory for me.
Sort of. We've got 50% unfamiliar territory, 50% familiar territory. We've got the Overcrest brand, head of brand, and then we have, and he's done tons of other brand stuff as well. And then we have the podcast side. So 50-50, but you're a big part of this. And I think that percentage doesn't even matter. So, hey, dude, this is a big deal. Perhaps a bigger deal than it should be, in my opinion. This Jaguar stuff. And we've kind of I wanted to have you on to talk to you about this because you know more about branding and marketing than anybody I know. And I kind of been waiting for this to come to its kind of logical conclusion because you had the launch, which was kind of like this weird, strange, potentially politically charged marketing or maybe branding campaign. I don't know. Maybe you can educate me on the difference there. But we had this kind of like this strange thing that came out that everybody had a visceral reaction to. Either you had a completely negative reaction to it, or you had like this, well, I don't care. It's just like some sort of agnostic reaction to it. Or maybe you even really loved it. I don't know. But it seemed like it was a largely negative reaction. And before we get into kind of like the nuts and bolts of the trajectory of what happened between the release of the quote unquote new brand of Jaguar and then the car itself, I want to kind of try and see if I can rewind a little bit and kind of one thing I haven't seen people talk about is kind of how we got here, because everybody's just like, it seems like everybody assumes we went from E-types in the 60s and then all of a sudden we're here, right? Like we're skipping over everything that happened in the middle. And I think it's easy to forget how tumultuous things have been for Jaguar, especially in the last 20 years.
Very.
So I got a little monologue for you. So bear with me. Hopefully,
I'm ready for it.
Okay, I've got a little water here. It's like 2 weeks old, but it'll be good in an emergency. Jaguar, once the crown jewel of British motoring, has spent the last few decades being passed around like a red-headed luxury car with deferred maintenance. Looks great in the ad, but once you get into it, the flaws start to show. The story of Jaguar isn't just about one brand. It's about the British automotive empire, once dominant, has been carved up, sold off, and diluted to the point where the badge often means more than what's underneath it, or maybe nothing at all. Take Bentley and Rolls-Royce, for example. These are two other legendary British brands. Unlike Jaguar, they've managed to survive and even thrive, but not without some serious outside help. Bentley landed with Volkswagen, which pumped billions into engineering and design, while Rolls-Royce ended up with BMW, which has turned it into the ultimate luxury status symbol. The difference? Volkswagen and BMW know how to preserve what made those brands special. They've kept Bentley fast and opulent, and they've made Rolls-Royce even more ridiculous with starlight headliners and soundproof interiors quieter than a monastery. Meanwhile, Jaguar became a Ford Mondeo. Let's talk about the Mondeo for a second. Because if we're being honest, that might have been the moment the wheels really started to fall off for Jaguar. In the early 2000s, they decided it needed a smaller sedan to compete with the BMW 3 Series. And instead of designing something completely from scratch, they rebadged a Ford Mondeo. Voila, the Jaguar X-Type. If you can pull up a picture of the Mondeo, Mr. Producer, that would be good. It wasn't just that it looked cheap. It was cheap. Sure, it had leather seats and a fancy badge, but under the hood, it was about as inspiring as a rental car. Jaguar owners, the kind of people who cherish the growl of a straight six or the elegance of walnut trim, saw through it immediately. It was like trying to pass off Big Mac as a filet mignon. You're not fooling anybody. So that was kind of, in my opinion, that was kind of like it's where the wheels started to come off for Jaguar. I feel like that's kind of when they started to lose their luster. It was a seminal moment for Jaguar, the point where they stopped leading and started chasing. The Germans, BMW, Audi, Mercedes had perfected the formula for sporty premium sedans. We're diving headfirst into the SUV market. You can kill the Mondeo thing. Jaguar, still trying to figure out how to fit a Ford key fob into a Jaguar keychain, is seriously, it was brutal. Jaguar going to Ford was. Yeah. Let's be clear. Jaguar wasn't doing well at the time. They were not doing well, but they still Ford doesn't really know what they're doing when it comes to the luxury market, especially when it comes to the British. The British have a very unique culture. If you look at like the 50s and the 60s and the revolution of like when the Mini came out and when the Jaguar E-Type came out was a huge revolution for the British people. It went from, you had almost two different cultures. You had the working class culture, and then you had the elite culture. And there was two different cultures for each of these things. You had kind of like this blue collar working class, for example, comedy. And then you had comedy for the elites. Then you had cars for elites, and then you had cars for the commoner. And when the Mini came out in the 60s, that was kind of when things started transitioning away from that culture. And I feel like when Ford came by, Ford doesn't know anything about that. They have no clue what British culture is all about. And I think that is honestly when things started to go downhill. And when the SUV boom hit, Jaguar was caught flat-footed, doubling down on sedans just as the world shifted to crossovers. By 2008, Ford had enough and sold Jaguar along with Land Rover to its current owner, Tata Motors. Grab a couple photos of what Tata makes generally, Mr. Producer. Now, here's where things get interesting. Tata Motors isn't just another car company. They're part of the Tata Group, a massive Indian multinational conglomerate that's into everything from steel production and chemicals to tea and IT services. This is normally what they make is stuff like this. Just regular people cars and little trucks.
I'd drive that.
I would. I want to do a trip. I want to get one of these little trucks and drive it across the country. I think it'd be fun to just 35 miles an hour, just totally slow.
Tata, sleep in the back of it.
I could. Well, Jake could. I don't know if I'd fit. Tata owns Tetley Tea. They're a major player in global telecom, and they've even helped build parts of the infrastructure for India's space program. They're huge. They bought Jaguar. That's actually Jaguar and Land Rover is now Jaguar. They bought Jaguar for $2.3 billion, which at the time felt like a steal. Meanwhile, brands like Bentley and Rolls were making all the right moves under the new corporate parents. Why? Because they understood the fundamentals. They weren't just brands and cars. They were both. They were experiences. They invested in making sure Bentley still felt like a Bentley, high-speed yacht on wheels. Rolls-Royce leaned into being luxury ridiculous. It's more of a mobile private club than a car. And neither one of these companies cut corners on these cars. Jaguar, on the other hand, spent decades wandering around in that identity crisis. Under Ford, it was an out-of-place piece in the premier automotive group puzzle, Ford. Under Tata, it got flashes of brilliance, the F-Type, but never the consistency to compete. There's no design consistency. Today, Jaguar is going all-electric by 2025, which I don't know, who knows if that's going to happen. Anyway, here we are, left with a British motoring empire that's been parted out like a barn find at an auction. Bentley and Rolls-Royce are out there living their best lives in German luxury, while Jaguar feels like that once glorious car in the classifieds. Ran when parked, needs TLC. But hey, it could still look good in the driveway, right? Maybe. So why, Jeff, why do people care about this so much? Let me get your take on that. Why are people caring so vehemently about this?
FCP Euro is an online retailer of OE, OEM, genuine aftermarket, and performance parts for European cars. From BMW to Porsche, Volvo, and more, their catalog is a one-stop shop with over 275,000 unique products, including expert-assembled kits to make shopping simpler. Actively building out their Volkswagen, Audi, and Porsche catalogs, from current to our favorite classics, including the Mark I Scirocco free ride car, they are working to have every part you need for all of your cars. Plus, every product they sell is backed by a lifetime replacement guarantee, even wear items like wiper blades, brake pads, and oil filters. With the opening of their distribution center in Mesa, Arizona, FCP Euro is now shipping parts from both coasts, serving most of the country in 3 days or less with their free shipping option. We at Overcrest have been working with FCP Euro for years and can vouch for them. They're real people who are passionate about what they do and the cars we love, while making sure to put you, the customer, first. Check them out today at fcpeuro.com and take advantage of free shipping on any order over $49. Looking for the best app for navigating your next adventure? Look no further than onX Off-Road. With over 750,000 miles of trails and comprehensive online maps, you can explore without worrying about cell service. The app features trail ratings, detailed information, and a discover tool to help you find trails near you. Onyx Off-Road also includes public and private land boundaries, so you'll know always where you can legally off-road and camp. Plan trips with ease using their route builder and share your adventure with friends. With features like route tracking, waypoint marking, and real-time updates, you're equipped for any challenge. Start your next adventure with confidence. Try Onyx Off-Road free for 7 days. Download the app and start exploring today.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of conversations to have. There's like one, the design of the actual design of the car.
Sure.
And then there's also like the brand conversation. And I think we should maybe start with the design of the car and then move into brand and kind of the reaction to the branding. Cause I think a lot of the blowback or negative sentiment has been really couched in the brand, the tone, the voice, a lot of what the design elements are speaking to. But, you know, I think people react to things branding wise, because it signifies what you're saying about yourself and what you're selling. And I think if we start with the design before we get to the brand stuff,
what do you think came first here? What do you think came first?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I have a theory, and I'll pitch it to you here in a little bit. But you know, as I looked at the design, the actual design of the car,
Mr. Producer, pull up some photos and rifle through these.
A couple initial reactions as a designer myself, and having been in, you know, some sort of design function for the last 20, 30 years of my life, I put the car into grayscale right away. So I
did that too.
Yeah.
I did the same thing immediately. Jess, go to the top down. Stop right there, because I don't want to go too much farther than that, because I've got an image to drop in after this one that I think will shock people. But when I interviewed Akim Anshite, and I asked, I'm like, why is your car? So he was the head of design at Bugatti, and I flew to Berlin and shot his 911, and the car was just silver. The interior was all black and white, and there was only one bit of color on the car, and it was an orange fan. Other than that, everything was black and white. And I said, why? Why is this black and white? He goes, if you want to see the shape and see if you actually like something or not, it must be gray, because color is emotion. So that's the first thing I did too, is pull it out in grayscale.
Yeah. And you know, I'm interested in what you thought of when you put it into grayscale. And I also would challenge people like to look at it like this, rather than with all the different like dystopian Barbie land kind of coloring.
Yeah. Grab the top down shot too. Grab the top down shot, Jess, of the,
and you know, I wonder, what's your initial reaction to this? And where, like, what does this make you feel in black and white?
Okay. So my first instinct is, what of this is Jaguar? You know, my first instinct is there Jaguar in here? And Jess, grab that other top-down shot and drop it in there if you could. And just click back and forth on the tabs up on top. You can see it. There is Jaguar in this design. And I think people are, and do the same thing for the side shot. People are so gripped on what they thought what the brand was that was being shoved down their throat, that they completely are overlooking whether the design is good or not. I personally see the Jaguar in it. I understand that it's there. So at least it's not like a complete departure from the heritage, but I think it's pretty amateur hour in terms of execution of an idea. It seems really unbaked to me. It seems like they've got a long way to go.
It feels like the first time I saw the Cybertruck, it looked like a concept drawing. Like, you know, you see the pencil sketches of cars where they have just the real big swooping lines, and it looks like it's, you know, in 240p resolution. It hasn't zoomed into 4K and had all the little
like
details.
Bond, N64 Bond is what it looks.
Yeah,
what it looks like.
And
Low
so
poly.
from that standpoint, if we're really thinking about it as a concept car, which is what this isn't a real car. If we're looking at it like a concept,
they did say in the thing, we don't do concept cars that don't come to reality. They specifically said this. I mean, this gets said at every concept speech, I imagine. This is what our production car is going to look like. We don't care if it absolutely pulverizes pedestrians. This is what we've got.
Yeah. I mean, they at the end of the day, they're not going to release something that looks like this and the interior looks like a Finnish sauna. Like that's just not gonna, that's not gonna happen. Like nobody will buy them from just a comfort and usability standpoint. So I think if you look at this actually as just a pure concept car and then compare it to a lot of other concept cars, this interior,
speak to, if you can for a second, as somebody that has probably a better grasp of design than I do, I think Tesla started this, where minimalism, or let me rephrase, cheapness is disguised as minimalism as design. So if you are a manufacturer and you're going to make an instrument cluster, you have to make the instrument cluster itself. You have to design the operating system to operate the instrument cluster. It has to be machined and tooled to fit inside a dashboard. You know what's cheaper? Add a screen. You're going to have, if you add a screen to control everything, you don't have to design buttons, knobs, switches, sliders, nothing. It's all controlled with one digital interface. So it is a whole, like the industrial design. There's no industrial designers to make it. You don't have to source it. There's no casting. There's no plastics. It's nothing. And I feel like people are going, well, let's just do that and then pretend it's simplicity as design.
Yeah, there's a lot of argument in the design world about kind of the end game of minimalism. And there's plenty of people who kind of get to the end of minimalism of just very stark blocks and spheres and cylinders. And then they start wanting to add contour and color and more back into it because that's what gives things personality. I think our idea, especially growing up in the age we've grown up in, the idea of the future has always been minimalism. It's always been Tron, and it's been, very, very clean lines. And so I think people look at like really stark minimalism as the future. That's what people have been taught that the future is. And so from just a design standpoint, I think this car is trying to tell you we're leaning into the future. We're doing something next gen. Yes, there is actually some Jaguar like styling or from a shape standpoint in this. You can see it, but we want to jump, a few models forward and we want to go super futuristic. And I think that's the goal of what they're doing with this design. Now, whether or not they achieved it, I don't know. I mean, there's elements within the design that also are maybe the brand elements. I would look at like the old word mark, the old word mark, it's standard issue car word mark, extra extended, non-committal to any particularly strong aesthetic and pretty much devoid of anything like the old one. Yeah. Now the new one, it's got its issues. I think, I mean, it
people
looks
have been
like
tearing this up, man. They're like, oh, it's as memeable as Papyrus. People are going crazy on this font. I don't love it. I don't like it. It reminds me of a handbag brand at TJ Maxx that 15 years ago was a really great brand, that was expensive. And now it's kind of been hoarded out. The only thing that really didn't you just define Jaguar?
Well, maybe, I don't know. I mean, it depends. I think the only thing from an aesthetic standpoint that really actually offends me is this JR circle that they're putting on the wheels
on the hubcaps. And
I've talked to a few designers that say if you look at it quickly, it looks like an ED. It looks like an erectile dysfunction icon. When I look at it, I see the E and the D. And now once you see it that way, you won't unsee it.
Well, it's not going to be you don't really need that because you're never going to get a blowjob with that center console being so tall between both cars.
Well, I think the that to me, that icon is the most TJ Maxx handbag moment of the car. I think they missed when, the old Growler, which is like the tiger face that they were putting in the logo.
The original, from the steering wheel, like the button on the steering with the red and the gold lion.
It definitely needs a lot of work, the Growler, but I think the Growler, there's something really, really iconic about that. And my guess is they're getting rid of it because the Growler comes from the sound of the engine. I know a few years back, Jaguar had a concept car where you started up and the tone of the engine was designed to sound like a Jaguar growl, which I thought was a pretty ambitious, cool idea. So
as long as it's not synthetic. I mean, that's what they did.
No, it wasn't. There's some videos out there of it. It's pretty cool, but it feels like they're getting rid of the Growler piece and moving towards this JR icon thing. And that's the only thing from a design standpoint I'm pretty not excited about. I think the rest of it, I think from a design
for who does this type of design appeal to? What we're looking at, what we're seeing. Do you have any idea? Does anybody come to mind? Like an avatar of that person?
Well, it kind of crosses over into brand a little bit, this comment, but
maybe this is a good segue for that.
I think their audience, that they're trying to figure out who their audience, it's clear that they want to fire their old audience. They want to move forward, and, whether we are talking about Jaguar for the right or the wrong reasons, it's almost irrelevant because Jaguar's main goal was to insert itself into the conversation because they've been left out of the conversation of other luxury and more interesting cars like Audi, Rivian, like even Tesla, they've been left behind. And so the goal of this, in my mind, from a branding exercise, is to insert yourself back into the conversation. That's what they're trying to do. I don't know if they actually know who their target market is, though, because it's definitely not the traditional affluent, like James Bond wannabe of yore. That's not who it is. And the tone of the voice currently is, I mean, if I was one word, I would describe it as insufferable. Like that's the tone. So the audience is maybe either a young, super affluent social media influencer or the type of person that would pay like $6 million for a banana taped to the wall,
and then eat it. That guy ate the banana. Did you see that? He ate it. He pulled it off the wall, took the duct tape off, and ate the banana.
That guy would probably he's probably interested in this car. So I think I don't know exactly, Kris, who do you think this car is for?
I feel like it's a new money car. I think it is for a market that has not developed a ton of taste yet, like the China market. The Chinese market is fairly new. I mean, the automotive market in China is going crazy. I think it was like 10 years ago, 1 out of like 150 people had a driver's license, and now it's 1 out of 8. So they're having a massive, massive surge in automotive ownership. But what coming with that naivety of cars is they don't have, we look back at Jaguar over the course of, 75 years, right? They don't. They look at BMW and they go, oh man, I remember the E30 M3 and the E39 M5. They don't.
Yeah.
So I think they haven't. It's almost like if I took my kids, and you can probably relate with this, especially when they were really young, and I went to the Hot Wheels section at the store, and I said, which is the coolest Hot Wheels here? They would go, that one. And it was the one that I thought was the ugliest Hot Wheels. It wasn't representative of a real car. It was super wild colors. And the wheels were big or small or orange or whatever. It had it just looked like a puke. Right. And I feel like if you haven't developed taste, that's what you want, is you want something that is shocking. And maybe that's who this target market is. It's not us. It's not Americans. It's a rising Chinese market. Now, caution. I mean, Audi is getting absolutely destroyed in China. So is Tesla. BYD is crushing everyone. And there's a serious headwind to anybody that wants to get into that market, which is ready. I mean, they are primed. They are legs spread for cars, but they're ready, man. And I don't know if this car is what anybody wants to buy there or not.
I think like before we jump into like people's reaction to it, I think I would say, you've heard me talk about this before, Kris, is the branding versus marketing.
Yes.
And this truly is a branding exercise. So branding is the why and the marketing is the how. So branding is long-term, marketing short-term, branding's macro, marketing is micro. And like one of the best ways to say it is branding creates value as where marketing extracts it. And so branding is a long-term exercise of creating value and building value over time. And it's a direction you're pointed. As where marketing, your campaigns might change, your tactics might change. You're trying to extract, get people to click, get people to buy. And this is fascinating because it's kind of mixing a little bit of both. Like it's absolutely a brand exercise saying we're firing the old customer. We're going in a new direction. We're going to capture a new market that's up and coming. And this is who we are now. This is our brand. But there is a little bit of a marketing exercise in that they created something very provocative, very like designed to trigger people, designed to get a reaction out of people. And whether or not they actually all 100% in the company believed that this is the right thing, they all believe.
Are we
that
talking about the
is,
car or the ad right now?
I'm talking about the brand, like the overall, this whole campaign that we've witnessed the last 2-3 weeks. So I think it is a branding exercise, but it was also the marketing of how it was done was designed to elicit emotion, elicit reaction, and to get people talking. And I think they achieved that. And, this gets me into the reaction piece.
Do you think that they intentionally, because the ad was provocative, it was, it seemed like it was angled toward a certain political view, knowing that the other side of the political view would be upset and would reject. They would 100% reject it. And one side might 100% embrace it. Do you think that was known, intentional, or was it a naive attempt at pandering?
Yeah, I don't know if it was well, first of all, I don't think it was intended to be political. I definitely
maybe tribal is a better word than political.
Yeah, but if you're in a certain echo chamber and you live in an urban, an urban center, and you're working in, those, especially in Europe and whatnot, like you're probably reinforced with a lot of things that would tell you this is a worthy risk to take. and the whole like copy nothing and all of that. I don't think they copied nothing, but the idea is to like really take a chance and do something new. And they did that. That's for sure.
It was delete ordinary too. That's one thing I saw in the press release is copy nothing, delete ordinary, which I haven't seen a lot, but it was in their official documents. Delete ordinary.
Yeah. I think, so many people wanted to discredit this whole thing as like ridiculous and, it's so out of control and so off brand that, that
people love to
they
see
really
a real
struggle
fall.
then to see what the good parts of it. What I immediately thought of when I saw this, I grayscaled it and I immediately thought Tesla. I looked at this and I said, these people have become irrelevant. This brand has become irrelevant. And they're looking at what is capturing attention, doing really bold things and creating something that's very Tesla-like in many ways. And then I don't know if you caught in the press release, they plan on opening their own stores. That's part of this campaign is they're going to open their own Jaguar stores. And I thought that also sounds like Tesla. And so I feel like when you actually look at these cars side by side, a Cybertruck. So like
circumventing the dealer network is what you're saying, like having our very own company stores kind of thing.
Well, they say that in the if you read through all the press stuff in the media kit, they say that. They don't go as far as to say we're circumventing the dealer network, but it's very clear if they're willing to go this far with how they're totally scrapping everything and revamping the brand. Maybe they are. I don't know. They are, however, going to want to open their own stores. And more, the more I look at this and think about it, there's a lot of Tesla's playbook that they are like looking at and copying from. And people thought the Cybertruck was a joke. When it first was announced, when it first was put out, like people thought my kid drew that. That's terrible. Like it's awful. And whether if you just remove the culture war, you remove the culture war, you remove Elon Musk.
You can't though.
But
it's inextricable.
So maybe this is a Cybertruck for the other tribe. I don't know what their intention is, but the thing I will say, as I looked at the reaction, if you're going to be crapping on a Cybertruck and you're going to be sitting there telling people how awful it is because of whatever ideology or culture war or whatever, but then tell people this is great, like you're just a hypocrite, and vice versa too. If you're telling people this car is horrible and like there's nothing redeemable about it, but then you're a Cybertruck fanboy, like, I don't know. I think they're two sides of the same coin. And that's where, for me, you can see people's kind of ideology, their political leanings, all of that start to flavor how they see the actual reinvention of a brand. It's an interesting like use case. It's not perfect one-to-one, but I'd challenge people to think about it.
Yeah, I can see that. I see people hating on the Cybertruck all the time. And I never hear anybody going, yeah, I really don't like the way that they did the steering or the 24-volt system or whatever it is. Like, I really don't like the way that it performs. It's always just like, it's frickin' Elon and blah, blah, blah. And it looks so dumb. And it's never a substantial argument. And I've felt this kind of the same way about this. I'm a pretty conservative leading guy. And my initial reaction was like, what is this ad? Oh my God. And then of course I'm trying to like bring myself back down to earth. And that is too, when the car came out, I hit that grayscale thing and I went, honestly, had that ad never happened, this car would just get passed off as just another concept. And no one would have said shit. And it would have went on. And then another car would have came out down the road, the production car, and it would have looked a little bit like that car. And no one would have said anything. No one would have had anything to say. But because it's pink and because they had the tribal ad that came out in the beginning that was leaning to one side, the other side just rejected it completely. And when the car came out, they did the same thing. And
the other question that's really fascinating to me is where is their heads at with going all electric right now? All these other companies are pulling back from their all electric. And then it makes me wonder, with the actual campaign and the brand redo, are they as behind on their sense of the brand of branding and design and culture as they are with understanding the electric market and where things are at with engines? Like that is a bigger, greater question that's worth asking.
Yeah, it seems the ad campaign seems a little behind the times, seems a little tone deaf. And so does the going all in on EV right now, because it is a very tight rope that everybody's walking right now, trying to somehow create things for mandates, but also still sell cars because nobody wants this shit. However, if you look at something like a Lucid Air, people love that thing if you're rich. If you're rich, they love that thing.
I think if
maybe
you
it's
have
getting
money,
scaled way back. Maybe it's getting scaled way back, and they're not going to make that many of these. Maybe it's going to be a limited amount of these, and they're going to sell them for $150,000, and they think that they can sell way more of those than they can $60,000, $80,000 Jags, and they're not going to sell too many. But then they're going to build off of that. They're starting over now, ground zero. No matter what you think, no matter how you feel, no matter what tribe you're in, things are going to go electric. It's just not going to happen tomorrow. So maybe they're hedging their bets of like, hey, let's redo this. Let's start small and then work our way up from here. If Tata's that big, they can eat it. They can eat it if they want to.
That's a good point. Last thing I would also, you made a good point about China and the market there. And I wonder what their strategy is there. I wonder how if the Chinese market are seeing these ads, if, how they're responding to it.
China's not seeing these ads.
Yeah. But I think like it is a big, heavy, strong, like the actual shape of it's very, very like bulky and masculine. Like I could see that working in China. I could see, the financial people that work in Shanghai loving this, like they love Hummers or some of the other cars. So it'll be interesting to see the markets that this, moves towards, and if the car actually even comes out and looks anything like this.
Or actually comes out at all. We'll see. I guess it depends on Tata Motors now, the maker of little tiny trucks and telecom.
And bad handbags.
Dude, thanks for coming on to talk to me about this. It's good to try to have an unbiased discussion with someone that actually knows what they're talking about. Instagram is a cesspool for discussions about this. It's absolutely brutal. So it's nice to have you.
Yeah. Fun to hop on. Let's do it again.
All right. Talk to you soon, man.
See ya.